Yo, what's going on, everybody? And as y'all can see today, we're going to be talking about another CW show that honestly was just a little weird. And obviously, we're going to be talking about DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Now, this wasn't just a show, it honestly felt more like a fever dream come to life in every single facet. Starting off as a spin-off from one of the more grounded shows like Arrow and The Flash, but it started just with the more grounded tones of both shows. It quickly evolved into one of the most chaotic, genre-bending roller coaster shows that somehow became one of the most beloved entries in the entirety of the Arrowverse for almost the entirety of its run. But let's not sugarcoat it if we're being honest. This show was outright weird. From, the sentient time traveling objects to the giant demon fighting plush toys. This really started to get a lot more bonkers as we really started getting into every single season. And Legends quite literally just said, oh yeah, we have a rule book that we've been following fairly nicely and it's been working amazingly. Let's throw that entire rule book away and just see what other chaos we could kind of really ensue into this kind of show. But obviously, today we're really just going to be talking about what made Legends of Tomorrow really the most wacky and wonderful show that it actively ended up becoming. Now, just for some background information, obviously, Legends of Tomorrow premiered on January 21st, 2016, during the height of the Arrowverse's popularity. Created as a spin off featuring fan favorite characters like Sarah Lance, Ray Palmer, Leonard Snart, the show aimed to explore time travel while embracing the ensemble cast format. So it really was honestly a very interesting concept and a very interesting show off the get go. Initially, Legends felt like a straightforward superhero team up series with a dash of sci fi, which really kind of gave it a good ground to get started on. But as the seasons progressed, it transformed into a form of darker tones from its predecessors and leaned more from the tones that we had to obscurity, comedy, and heartfelt character moments. There were extremely nice moments throughout the show, even as it got on and totally like. But it really kind of got to the point where the timing of its release allowed it to ride that superhero wave of the golden age that we really had from the beginning of CW and all of that. But it quickly just carved out into its very own quirky niche where it really started shining even more than some of the other shows that it even came from originally. From the get go, Legends made it clear that it wasn't like its Arrowverse siblings. While Arrow brooded and the Flash balanced humor with drama, Legends fully embraced its ridiculous premise. The show's self awareness became its greatest strength, and it knew it was obscure and absurd enough that it really just leaned into it with the most amount of gusto and the most amount of yeah, we can do this no matter what we're doing, so don't even bother trying to care, just throw whatever we want in there and just keep the story going. This series was where a team of misfits fought historical dictators, aliens, and magical creatures, sometimes all in one episode, really just started going okay, what are we doing here? If we're really just thinking about it, in the beginning, the show was obviously started off by going against somebody like Vandal Savage, which obviously fairly common, a fairly normal person to be going up against. He's immortal, so the time traveling entire premise of the show works amazingly. There's not really having to deal with a lot of aliens or a lot of things like that. It's more just along the lines of, oh, we have this specific character. He's going to be throughout the entire timeline, so we're just trying to stop him. Then obviously we have to get to eventually getting through the Legion of Doom and with Malcolm Merlin, Damien Dark, and the Reverse Flash, which again is a speedster, so him being out through multiple timelines makes decent sense. There was a lot of points to this where we actually could make sense with a lot of it, until we started getting into like more of the later points of the show, because the tone shift that we really had like allowed them to start experimenting with the genres from the horror to the musicals, making every episode start to feel a lot more fresh and unpredictable. But the unpredictableness really started getting me wondering like what was going on in this show, especially once we get to like some of the later seasons and we see like Mick, like Heat Wave, one of the characters from the Flash originally, have kids. And yes, I said him, but like nothing major, just him having kids with aliens, and I think they came out of his skull or something. I do not remember, and it couldn't be explained very well. But like one of the honestly more bizarre yet brilliant aspects of this show was its revolving door of characters, because unlike most shows that stuck with like the core group, Legends constantly evolved its team. Some departures like Leonard Snart's were extremely emotional gut punches, while others like Rip Hunters felt more like the writers ran out of ideas or whatever. Like then we had the additions like Zari Tomas, and like that entirely brought in a new dynamic with her millennial sarcasm and the entire way that she acted. And Mick Rory again's evolution from the pyromaniac to the romance novel like list that really made extremely good books in world was unexpectedly truly wholesome. And as I said, just unexpected in the way that the story just started going on. Like the frequent cast changes really kept the show from becoming stale, which was honestly a very good part of the show, even if it sometimes felt like the writers were just playing musical chairs with the roster, which sometimes we actually wanted some of these characters to stay on a little longer. Specific example, after like Martin Stein's death, and the entirety of the Firestorm dynamic was kind of in shambles. We would have really liked to see Jackson like stay a little longer in whatever capacity, because we actually liked his character. But really can't really always get what we want, so we had to really just get accustomed to it. And one of the more like honestly hilarious thing about this show was the time travel rules, because then again, what rules? Like time travel is very tricky, but Legends treated it like a game of just like, what are we doing? Because the rules changed whenever it suited the plot. Sometimes altering history caused catastrophic ripple events, and other times the team would literally just waltz into the timeline, mess things up, and face absolutely zero consequences. Like there are literally entire points in the first season, the second season, or whatever, where the smallest change in the timeline can cause gigantic ripples in any specific facet, due to the fact of the butterfly effect. One small change causes the entire timeline to be messed up. Something that we literally got in the Flash, and we had explained perfectly every single time that Barry would mess up the timeline. But then as seasons start going along, it's just we messed up the timeline. Oh well. We created a character that shouldn't exist. Oh well. We're like, I think their little catchphrase was messing things up for the better, which shouldn't have been possible, but we've really started to become like, okay, this works sometimes, like, because the inconsistency really became a part of the show's charm, in all fairness. Like, the writers didn't sweat the details, neither did the fans. We really just kind of loved that short mantra, like it really just kind of became a mantra in terms of don't think too hard, really just enjoy the ride. And that's really the way that we started dealing with this show very, very far, because again, when we talk about like the way that this show started to evolve, we started off with like some decent villains. Like we had some truly wild villains, obviously, but whether it was Vandal Savage in season 1, or the delightful campy Legion of Doom in season 2, or we have Maulus, a time demon that fought like against a giant Beppo plush toys, the show really started getting a little outlandish with a lot of these things. Like the antagonists were as varied as the show itself, and while some villains were genuinely menacing, others felt more like they were plucked from a Saturday morning cartoons. And the contrast between the deadly serious threats and the over the top absurd villains was very quintessential with the Legends entire show, but it honestly just felt, a lot more weird than anything else. Because just talking about like Maulus, for example, the time demon, like in that entire thing, that entire premise was quite literally just full of just magic and dealing with some kind of things like that. Because in the later seasons of Legends, it literally pivoted from that time travel essence, which it kept the entire show, but it started focusing a lot more on magic, introducing characters like John Constantine, which I'm not going to hate on because he is quite literally my favorite character in the entirety of the Arrowverse because his character was perfect. Then we have Charlie, a shape-shifting god. That this like really started to like divide fans like the entire shift, because on one hand it allowed the show to explore a lot of new storylines and themes, but in others hands like it strayed so far from the original premise that we were really just wondering, what show are we watching and how is this the same show that we started on? Like, the magic brought like a darker edge to the show, but it also led to some of the most absurd moments, like when the team like befriending a singing dragon or hosting a reality show to trap evil spirits, or like, a lot of other things. Because like, whether you loved or hated the magical twist, like, it was undeniably still Legends, just because the character dynamics and a lot of the just entire characters still being absolutely like having perfect chemistry with each other, so nothing like still felt too out of the park and still felt too weird in terms of like what we were used to. But in all fairness, like, the show was just really really amazing and then confusing at the exact same time. But the show did do a couple things right, most specifically, the meta humor. Because if Legends excelled at one thing, it was breaking the fourth wall, or just kind of doing humor that was almost unparalleled. Like, the characters frequently pointed fun at like the like the superhero tropes, like of the Arrowverse, and even themselves in episodes like the one where we're all trapped on TV, where like master classes in self-aware storytelling. Because this humor set Legends apart from the other superhero shows that we really had. It wasn't afraid to mock itself, and the fans loved it absolutely. There was, I'm pretty sure, a specific episode where it was supposed to like needed like some kind of crossover, but they couldn't get any of the other characters to come in, so they all literally just dressed up as other characters, whether it's like the Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl, and just put on their costumes, which was absolutely hilarious in terms of like the entirety of the show. But we really were just like, okay, yeah, this is absolutely getting out of hand. Because while technically it was a part of the Arrowverse, Legends often felt more like the odd one out, because obviously we didn't see a lot of the more crossovers than a lot of other things. Because crossovers like Crisis on Infinite Earths highlighted how different it was from its siblings, where Arrow and Flash focused on the epic battles and emotional stakes. Legends leaned into that more absurd, like, comedy and bizarre scenarios that the other shows never really did. And the distinction worked both for and against the show. It allowed Legends to carve out its own identity, but also made it feel a lot more disconnected from the other Arrowverse narrative shows. And despite its up and downs, Legends of Tomorrow really still left a very large impact on the entirety of the Arrowverse scene, and it proved that the superhero shows didn't really need to be overly serious to succeed. By embracing the weirdness that it had, honestly, it created a space for stories that were honestly heartfelt, hilarious, and completely out of the box. Because while it's no longer on the air, Legend still remains a fan favorite and a testament to the creativity and power of taking risks. Because I'm telling you right now, this show was absolutely bonkers. Like, nothing made sense, and if you watched the show at any specific random interval, just like watching random episodes, you would be hard felt to be able to tell what the plot was at any specific episode. Like maybe season 1, season 2, you could find the plot. Anything past that, the plot is basically just completely lost, and you're just watching whatever nonsense is going on in the season until you finally kind of get to the main bad or whatever's going on. But obviously, the show did kind of end off on a cliffhanger, which I'm still sad about. But Legends of Tomorrow, in all fairness, was more than a show. It was an experience, and it was an amazing experience, to say the least. The show was weird, and I'm never going to say that it wasn't. But from its ever-changing cast to its ridiculous plot lines that still left me and leave me dumbfounded on some of the things that they did, it defined and defied expectations,
if you guys
and
did
refined what the
enjoy or
superhero
love this
series
breakdown
really
of
could
like
be.
Spider-Man and
Because
Flash, make sure to hit that like button.
no
Like I
matter
said at the
what,
beginning of
the
video,
Legends moments
hit
really
that
just
subscribe
kind of
button,
felt
turn
a
on the
lot
notification
more
bell
just
so you guys never
interesting than
miss another
anything else.
video.
We had
And
unicorns,
we're all about
full-on
celebrating, you know, the
alien
connections that make
werewolves,
comics so
literally,
incredible.
honestly, I
So
can't even tell you.
make
Like,
sure you
we had
give me a
the
couple more
weirdest
ideas that you guys
entire
might
just
actually enjoy. But until next time,
animals or
stay
whatever
heroic,
just to show up
keep
in the
dreaming
show.
big,
And
and
nothing
let's talk
always made
comics again
sense.
soon.
But let me know
Peace.
down in the comments, what were your favorite Legends moments, and let me know anything that you guys honestly would like me to do in terms of content otherwise. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please don't forget, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more dives into like the wildest and weirdest shows in the entirety of the Arrowverse, or just comic related shows in general. But with all that said, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.